So 2026 is halfway over, and you have barely achieved any of the goals that you said you were going to achieve. And that's why I wrote down 5 simple ways to help achieve goals. And I want to be able to share them all with you. And so without further ado, let's get started. Number 1, overload your goals. If you have watched any of the videos that I've already posted, I talk about the concept of overloading your goal. And what it means is that you need to be able to define all the actions that are necessary to achieve your goal, all the people that you can contact, and all the resources that you may need to achieve your goal. You need to be able to consolidate all these things and then execute all in one go. You do 2 things with this. Number 1, you decrease the time tremendously. You decrease the time tremendously in which it would require for you to achieve the goal. You decrease that time. Because instead of dabbling with option A and seeing if it works or not and going to option B and then option C, you're able to put it into all one basket and execute simultaneously. Just executing simultaneously, you reduce so much time. The second thing is that you're able to increase the probability of you achieving your goal. That's the ultimate thing that you need to be doing, is increasing the probability of you achieving the goal. And so being able to execute all in one go, even if you have, you did 20 different options and then you got to hit back on 5, right? You have 5 different opportunities for you to achieve your goal and you pick one. You have the ability to say no to the other 4. And number 2, if option 1 doesn't even work out, now you have an immediate plan B, which is very important for you to achieve your goal. The second thing I've written down is that don't go home, right? Especially if you work a 9 to 5, and if you have a home office, this doesn't really count. But if you work a 9 to 5, if you do anything outside of your home, you need to be able to justify to yourself why you should be able to go home that day. And the way you do that is that you need to dedicate at least an hour or 2 hours to just straight productive work, where you are achieving the things that you need to achieve. And then once you achieve those things, once you're satisfied, then you can go home and then actually go to sleep. Because if you don't do that and you just go home, what happens, right? You take off your shoes, you feel relaxed, you sit on the couch, you get in the bed, you eat some food, now you feel tired, and now you don't want to actually do work. These things are actually not optimal to you achieving your goal. Your brain is going to associate your home with relaxation, which is not an optimal state for you to achieve your goals. You need to be in a place of productivity, and that requires you to go to like a cafe or something similar when you get off of work or whatever you do. You need 1 or 2 hours where you're in a different environment and you just strictly focus on achieving your goal. The next thing that I have is reverse engineering. Reverse engineering your goal, it's understood and it's commonly talked about, but it's highly underutilized when it comes to goal setting theory. Reverse engineering means clearly defining the goal that you want to achieve and then being able to ask yourself, what are the actions that immediately precede that? And then you can work backwards. What are the actions that immediately precede that? And then that, and then that, and so on and so forth, right? When you reverse engineer, the clarity of your goal is going to determine the clarity of your actions that's going to precede it. And what you'll realize is that when you reverse engineer and you have a level of clarity working backwards, you can then get to a point where you're defining the type of actions that you need to do right now in order to achieve your goal. In other words, the clarity of your goal becomes the standard in which you evaluate the actions that you do, and you have the ability to determine whether or not that action is in active pursuit of your goal or it's taking away from achieving the goal. That's the importance of reverse engineering. You need to have clearly defined goals. And if you don't know how to clearly define your goal, either look up SMART goals, and if you're tired of SMART goals, you need to search up Edwin A. Locke, PhD psychologist. He developed goal setting theory, which is invaluably important to you understanding what goals are and how to achieve them. The next thing that I have on this list is using the concept of leverage. Now, again, if you watch my former videos, I use the concept of leverage a little bit, right? Most people talk about the concept of leverage, of like leveraging yourself with other people, like socially. However, that is a secondary issue. The primary issue is being able to utilize the concept of leverage for yourself and with yourself. The concept of leverage in this context means, are you able to build something and have confidence in something in which you're able to stand on it in order to step to the next position? Because if you're not confident in that initial thing that you have built, then how can you step into the next position without it crumbling underneath you and thus sabotaging your ability to get to the next step? And the way this looks like is that once you reverse engineer your goal, once you have clearly defined actions, you need to be able to achieve the first actions that's able to prime you prime you to get into the next position, right? So for instance, I want to be able to run like a 5K race, which is like 3 point something miles, right? I'm not going to start trying to run 3 miles every day. That's ridiculous. The next concept is that you need to be able to use the concept of leverage, right? Most people talk about the concept of leverage in the sense of like leveraging in like social networks or things like that. However, when it comes to other people, those are secondary issues. Those are not primary issues. You need to be able to learn how to utilize the concept of leverage for yourself and with yourself. Because once you learn that, then you could be able to utilize it outside of yourself. But what I mean about the concept of leverage is being able to build something firm where you have confidence to stand on it, to step into the next position without it crumbling underneath you and thus sabotaging your ability to get to the next position that you need to be in, right? So an example of this is that once I reverse engineer my goals, right? Let's take the instance is that I want to run a 5K race, which is like 3.1 miles or something like that. I'm not going to start trying to run 3.1 miles. That's ridiculous. What I need to be able to do is be able to leverage my ability to put my body in a certain healthy state in order to move to the next position, right? And so what that means is that when I start off, right, being able to run 3 miles a week, once my body has gotten used to running 3 miles a week, and then I'm confident that that's just second nature, just something habitually ingrained into me at that point, then I could be able to utilize that as leverage in order to get to the position of running a mile a day. And then once I build that firm foundation, then being able to move into the position of running 2 miles a day, one in the morning, one in the evening, right? So what I'm doing is that I'm building something. I'm building a habit. I'm building a character. I'm building a bodily status. And then I'm utilizing that as leverage in order to get to the next position. Because if I don't have a firm foundation first, right, and it's crumbly, it's wobbly, it's going to crumble or whatever, it's going to sabotage my ability to get to the next position. And if I'm not able to execute my next position or my next thing that I want to achieve, right, like successfully, then I'm going to feel bad about myself. Right? So your inability in order to build a firm foundation is going to sabotage your ability to get to the next position. And if it's going to sabotage it, because it's you doing it, you're going to feel bad about yourself. And when you feel bad about yourself, you're not going to feel motivated to continue. So you need to leverage firm foundations. Everything is about leverage. It's about steps. All right. The next thing I want to be able to pass on is creating the proper conditions, right? And this all coincides, but they're just different angles of understanding. Creating the proper conditions, at least when it comes to mentality, right? Let's talk about mentality, right? People think free will is the ability to think about anything at any particular time, that I have the freedom to choose anything. That is not what free will is, right? Your brain is influenced by the environment you're in, the decisions that you made 30 minutes ago, the decisions that you made last week, the conversations that you have, all types of things. Your brain is influenced, and those are going to influence your decisions, right, within the moment. However, the things that you do have control over is like the fundamental decisions that you have, which is like defining who you want to be and like what type of lifestyle you want to live and stuff like that. Once you define those type of things, those large decisions, right, you can be able to reverse engineer the type of conditions that's necessary in order to put you in the right mental mindset in order to achieve those goals with more clarity, right? So for instance, if I want more mental clarity, right, I need to start doing actions that's going to be able to prime myself where I can have mental clarity. I can't choose mental clarity. I can choose the actions that lead to mental clarity. So that means getting more sleep, right? And if I'm having issues with sleeping, then I need to be able to define what are all the issues that surround me sleeping, and then fix those one by one. And then I utilize my perfection of sleep in order to leverage into the next one, right? Which is food I eat, right? Like the diet and whatnot, being able to eat more fruits and things like that, because we know those correlate with more mental clarity, right? And then I'd be able to utilize all these things, and then I leverage all these habits that I built for myself and all these actions that I built for myself in order to achieve mental clarity. And then once I reach mental clarity on a regular basis, then I can utilize that leverage and go to the next thing, right? This is what the concept of leverage looks like. And this is what the concept of reverse engineering looks like. And this is what it looks like to create the proper conditions. Place yourself in the proper conditions in which it's going to help you make more appropriate decisions for your habits. right? Sleeping is not about choosing to sleep on time and waking up on time. It's about creating the proper conditions that help you to go to sleep on time and wake up on time. Like, it's not about the actions. It's about the conditions you create that influences the success of the action. It's about the conditions. That's what's super important. Right. So the next thing that I have on this in this book is that stop choosing the outcome. Right? Stop choosing the outcome. You can't choose the outcome, right? The habits you build is more important than the goals you set. The reason being is because you can't choose the outcomes of the goal, right? If your goal is to have a house, you can't choose to have a house, right? The reason being is because if you could choose the outcome, everybody would have done it. Everybody would have had $1 million. Everybody would have had a car. Everybody would have had a house. Everybody would have had whatever they wanted by now. But the problem is, it's not that you can't really choose the outcome. You can only choose the actions that lead to the outcome, and that's what's super important. And so when you practice these things of everything that I just said, right? When you define your goal, you overload your goal, you reverse engineer your goal, you create the conditions for you to achieve your goal, you create the conditions for you to have the right actions for you to achieve your goal. When you do all these things and you prime yourself perfectly, then you're able to be on a one track to your goal. And once you have that confidence that the actions you're doing now are directly aligned with what your goal is, you stop worrying about the goal and you start worrying about the consistency and discipline of your actions. And that's what you need to be focused on. And this is not philosophical and theoretical, right? This is literally what life is, right? Life is just the movement of biological matter. It's a self-sustaining, self-generated, goal-directed action. That's what life is. Life is goal directed. It's not a goal achievement. It's a goal directed. That means its actions that they're doing is in constant motion in order to achieve the goals. That's the essence of life. It's the actions. It's not the status. It's not the outcomes. It's the actions. You primarily live life through action. So you need to learn how to enjoy the moments that you do have and live in the moment. When you feel boredom, when you have a burning sensation to go into the next phase, you need to stop and just enjoy the moment and enjoy the actions that you're doing and have confidence that the actions that you're doing are aligned with your goal. Because if you have the right actions, the goal and its achievement and it's the outcome, whatever you want at the end of the day, it's going to come. Why it's going to come? It's going to come through necessity. It's going to come through necessity. It is going to be a necessary byproduct of the actions that you do. In the same way as a basketball, if I drop a basketball, it's going to bounce up. Why? Because the action that was performed is directly aligned with the outcome, right? If the outcome is for the basketball to bounce, all I need to do is just drop the basketball. It will bounce because the actions necessitate that outcome. You need to have confidence that the actions you're performing is going to necessitate the outcome. So what you need to do is reverse engineer the goal. Apply everything that I said. Apply everything that I said to your goals, right? Short-term goals, long-term goals, whatever. And then remain consistent and disciplined with the actions that are aligned with your goal. You do that, you're good. I know it's going to be boring sometimes. I've been there, and I'm probably still going to be there every once in a while. It's going to get boring. And you're going to have a burning sensation to achieve your goal. It's just going to eat you alive because it's going to get to a point where you're on the right path, right? You're achieving everything that you need in order to be aligned with your long-term goals, right? And you see yourself already living in the long-term goal status. You already see yourself in that position, but you're not there yet. And you just have to do this thing over and over and over and over and over again. I understand that feeling, but you're going to have to do it. And you just have to take a step back and realize this repetition of action, that's what life is. And you need to just take in those moments. That's what's most important.